All right.
Wait, let me fix your eyebrows. I want to.
Why are we doing this?
Because you're not pretty.
My wife, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start the show. And welcome to Spacevidcast, episode 7.01 for Saturday. What's today's date? January 18th, 2014. My name is Benjamin Higginbotham. With me, as always, the beautiful, lovely, wonderful, and talented Carrie Ann Higginbotham. We have been off the air for a little while, so we're going to come back at the third part of the show, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about why we were gone for so long, what the plans are for in the future, and just in the very front of the show, we are back. So expect weekly shows to come back on a fairly regular basis at this point. No more weird stuff in between. So let's go ahead and get started with some space news. First off, Rosetta is on track for a historic comet landing. That was launched March 2nd, 2004, which is nearly 10 years ago. This is the actual live launch coverage. Here you can see the Ariane Space launch. And then you gotta wait. And then, do it! There we go. Little bit different than how Von Braun would have that done. So the Rosetta spacecraft and Philae lander are going to comet 67P, and forgive my pronunciation, but it's a Churyumov. What's the other one?
Gerasimenko.
There you go. Thank you. It's going to be orbiting the comet for 17 months starting in August. It's been hibernating for the last 2.5 years, since June of 2011. It's going to wake up really shortly here on January 20th. There's going to be about a series of month-long checkouts because it's been in space for quite a long time. What's going to basically happen is it's going to go up to the comet. It's going to orbit basically 17 months.
Yeah.
It's going to send a lander down. Mm-hmm. It's going to be recording stuff on the comet, seeing how it does, because the comet's going to be coming closer to our sun. So basically the comet's going from an inactive state to an active state. It's going to pass by and it's going to go back into an inactive state. And we're going to have a spacecraft there the entire time measuring all of that. So that stands to be really, really, really cool. And that's happening this year, right now, in 2014.
And it's one of the first times that something like this has happened. There have been times when when spacecraft have gone around comets and everything, but getting a lander onto a comet...
Well, we fly by comets. We generally don't establish... This is the first time we establish a stable orbit around a comet.
This is true. And this comet was chosen in particular because it has a fairly stable orbit every 6 years around the sun, and coming this close to Earth, which is really quite fascinating, I think.
If you're getting ready to go to space, because I know I am, Virgin Galactic has had their third powered test, and this is a supersonic flight that they've done. And they did the full drop test. You can see White Knight 2 carrying Spaceship 2 right here. The carrier aircraft will then... It almost, when you watch this footage, it almost looks unreal. It's going to drop the spacecraft. The carrier craft right now is at around 50,000 feet or so. It's going to drop the spacecraft. I'm sorry, it's at 46,000 feet. It'll drop Spaceship 2. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to stall and wait for it to drop, but it's going to take forever to do that.
Right.
Now, on this particular test, Spaceship 2 reached 71,000 feet and a max airspeed of Mach 1.4. However, in a normal mission profile, when they actually have paying customers on board going into space, the maximum height will be 361,000 feet at apogee. So that
looks like computer graphics. Like, I know I have seen, and see that fire. Oh, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But yeah,
wait. My favorite shot is the one. I think it's the next shot. Check this out. It's like it's on the carrier aircraft, and you just see. I'm pretty sure this is it. Yeah. You can see Spaceship 2 going up.
Oh, it's amazing.
Isn't that an awesome shot?
Absolutely incredible.
I love that. So Virgin Galactic is getting a lot closer to flight. Sir Richard Branson had said that he was going to take his family on the first flight, so he wanted to take his family the first flights Christmas of 2013. Obviously, that didn't quite happen.
Not quite.
Well, he said Christmas. I'm not sure he said of 2013.
Right.
Maybe Christmas of 2014.
Right.
Still have a few more tests for Virgin Galactic to go through.
Well, it's sort of like a gift card where you give somebody the gift card in 2013, but they don't use it till 2015. It's kind of like that. That's what he meant.
It's
for Christmas.
It's a lot like that.
There you go.
So Virgin Galactic getting closer, but right on their heels, XCOR Lynx, believe it or not. They're working on the Mark I XCOR. It's only designed to go to 200,000 feet, but testing for that should begin in 2014. And you can actually see some of the animation here. So that is that's the animation of the Mark I Lynx.
Right. So let's be clear about that.
This is the XR 5K18 engines. The engine itself is going to cut off at around 190,000 feet, not necessarily for the Mark I, but in a nominal paid mission. The whole vehicle will go up to 328,000 feet. So the rest of that is a coast phase after the engines have cut off. The Mark II is the one that's actually going to take tourists to space. So once they're done with the Mark I and doing their testing, they're going to turn it into a training vehicle, and then the Mark II will be the next-gen vehicle that brings you off into space. And I'll kind of talk a little bit slower. But unlike the Spaceship Two, White Knight 2, the Lynx is a rocket airplane. So it doesn't separate from anything. It flies up like an airplane with rocket engines, of course. You can see it ascending right now. It goes into space. You get about a little under 5 minutes worth of weightlessness in space. You're in for realsy space, the generally accepted boundary of space. Then you're going to coast back down and you're going to land like an airplane. Then you fuel it back up, send it back off into space, and
fully
off you
reusable, much like an airplane, like you were saying, as opposed to anything being dumped off into the ocean or anything along those lines, which is really remarkable. Once they get this going, it's going to be really great. And then the Mark III, which is the next step after, of course, the Mark I and the Mark II, is designed to take more payload into space, besides just people, much like experiments. So that'll be really cool. But they're coming along quite quickly. I feel like it wasn't all that long ago that we were saying, I don't know what XCOR is doing anymore.
Yeah, well, they're building Lynx.
They're
there you
busy,
go.
busy bees.
Busy bees. So, all right, moving right along, because we got tons of new, we got like 6 months to catch up on.
At least.
The president has signed a $17.6 billion NASA budget. That is up from last year. And I didn't add in my notes how much it was up from last year, but it was up from last year. Mm-hmm. This will fully fund the Space Launch System and Orion. You're actually watching a animation of the Space Launch System right here, and then Orion sits on top. If built, the Space Launch System will be the most powerful rocket humans have ever built, beating out even the Saturn V moon rocket that sent astronauts to the moon. And there you can see the stage separation coming up in a moment. SLS and Orion are actually funded $200 million more than needed to get them launched by 2017. Mm-hmm. However, commercial space, companies like SpaceX and Orbital Technologies under the CCI cap and CCDev and all those other fun acronyms that basically say commercial crew to the space station and cargo to the space station, that was not funded at the requested level. NASA had requested $821 million. They've actually been funded at a larger number than last year. Last year they were funded at $525 million. This year they're funded at $696 million. Mm-hmm. However, $171 million is currently being held in reserve until an independent cost-benefit analysis of commercial crew is done. So basically, that's a bunch of politicians saying, I'm not sure if we want to do this. I'm not sure if this is a good use of our money. Which ironically, again, $1.6 billion for SLS, $1.2 billion for just Orion, and about half of that for all of commercial crew, which is multiple companies competing to send astronauts to wherever we want to send them. I'm not sure how don't think we're getting the bang for our buck on that one.
Right,
but I'm
right.
sure
Not sure how that's...
there's something.
That's
something
okay.
There.
That's, it's wonky math.
Wonky math.
Yeah.
It's truthiness. It's
truthiness. There you go. That's good.
So this one was a fun one. It's not really a news item, but I thought it was kind of interesting looking. I found it on, I want to say, Reddit. Check this out. Here's a picture of a crowdfunded space jacket. It's basically inspired by the EVA suits, the extravehicular activity suits that you would have on a mission. You can see some of the different... is this a picture? No, I don't think this is it.
I think it's the next picture.
Might be the next picture. There we go.
Yeah.
I enjoy that shot where you've got the jacket on and the space shuttle in the background. Behind it, nonetheless, a chain link fence. That's pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you can read the text on that, but all the patches that you see like right there, they're all hard Velcro, and so you can put your own patches on there. So whatever Velcro mission
Just
patch
like on
you
a
want
real
to use.
spacesuit.
Just like on a real spacesuit.
Aw, isn't that cool?
It's 28 days left as of this broadcast, 10% off, so $265. I thought it looked really cool.
It does look really cool. I love the inspiration. I love the idea, and I love the thought process behind it with the quilting on it, so it sort of looks like the tiles in the spaceship.
Yeah,
you know, that sort of thing. I thought that was really interesting.
I think it's so I wear Google Glass out of the house,
Yes.
Not of the show, but out and about when we're at Disney or whatever. And it's amazing how many people stop you and ask you questions about it. I wonder if something like this can become a conversation starter about
I would
space.
imagine.
Maybe. I mean, Google Glass is like you look like a Android robot kind of thing.
Sure,
you don't,
but
this is still a very out there and apparent coat.
Right. Well, and it's so it hits those classic notes of NASA. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you see an astronaut walking around in their blue suit, you know immediately, like, oh, that person most likely is an astronaut. I mean, they may not look familiar, their name may not be familiar, which is really unfortunate, but that's a different story. But you know immediately that person's probably an astronaut, and it's going to start a conversation. And I think something like this would be very similar.
Maybe that's something Spacevidcast should put in like an online store as a blue jumper with like patches that look all official, so it makes you look like you're an astronaut.
Right.
Yeah, citizen astronauts.
There you go.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
The final news item for this live show is: should NASA Ames be renamed after Sally Ride? This was actually your story.
So Robert Perlman of Collect Space actually wrote this as an op-ed piece on space.com, and this is all coming off of NASA Dryden being renamed for Armstrong, which is a brilliant idea, I think, in many, many ways, and nothing without any disrespect to Dryden or to Ames or to anyone else that these NASA centers are named after, that we're sort of coming up on a slightly new generation. And Ames in particular, he died before he really saw NASA kind of come into fruition. I believe it was 1943. So it kind of makes a little bit of sense to name somebody. The idea is that NASA only has a handful of astronauts whose names are household names. Sally Ride being one of them. She's the first woman in space. First American in space. I apologize. Valentina Tereshkova. I apologize.
Whoa, 2 points to you.
Sorry.
All right, high five on that one. Yeah.
Thanks. It's sweaty palms. Anyway, but Sally Ride, even after she was done flying, she did a lot to try and encourage women and girls to be interested in the STEM fields in general. And this just sort of goes along with that. There is also a Sally Ride festival that happens at Ames every year. So there's a connection there anyhow. And how many times have people said NASA Ames and someone thinks that there's a NASA center in Iowa, of all places? So I think it makes a lot of sense. I am in full support of it. Robert Perlman doesn't say that he's super gung-ho about it necessarily, but that now Congress has sort of opened the door of the renaming of some of these centers, and how that might be a good idea, and what a great way to honor somebody who's done so much, not just for NASA in general, but for the sciences.
So as Hunter says in the chat room, and I kind of agree, absolutely not on the renaming. These are iconic centers. It's a lot like when they changed Cape Canaveral to Kennedy Space Center,
Right.
and then changed it back essentially to Cape Canaveral.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I see that, but they're already named after, most of them are already named after big people who had huge impact. And no disrespect to Sally Ride, but Neil Armstrong, first human ever to set foot on the moon, ever. Big deal in humanity. Sally Ride, not the first woman in space.
Right.
Really not a lot of, certainly had to put up with the good old boys club, but little bit different than first human on alien body.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the debate can be made in both directions. I personally come on the side of the Sally Ride side, but that doesn't mean that it's open for discussion. I thought it was very interesting, and it was something that I hadn't thought about before. And with the changeover of the name from Dryden to Armstrong, I think it does open a lot of doors. And it doesn't have to be the renaming necessarily of some of these centers. Obviously, I'm in full support of. It doesn't matter. The point is that it opens the door, and I think that's very interesting, and it's something to think about. And or, if we make a new center, I think Sally Ride's name should be at the top of that list.
What do you think? Do you think we should be renaming any of the centers? Should Dryden actually not have been renamed? Not that we have any choice in the matter, but what's your opinion? What do you think? Leave it in the YouTube comments or on the Spacevidcast comments. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, our main topic, we're going to look backwards to 2013, we're going to look forward to 2014, and a quick little update as to what's happening with Spacevidcast Epic. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Filled with awesome expectation, this girl's a fascination, and nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving through the heat, keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking, she's fire walking to be free.
And welcome back to Spacevidcast. So one of the things that happened is we got kind of caught up in our day jobs last year, and we were off the air for a very long time.
As they say, life got in the way of life.
Life got in the way of life. Is that the quote?
Yeah,
That's
life got in the way of life.
Life got in the way of life. So for Spacevidcast Epic subscribers, that kind of sucks a little bit because there's no extra content for you. Now, obviously, you still have access to the old stuff, and your Epic's contributions do help us out. So for those of you who want a refund, just let me know. Benjamin at spacevidcast.com. Totally understand. We'll work something out. We'll make it happen. We'll make it right by you. But in the meantime, we try to figure out what makes sense because these shows are expensive. How do we want to make this all go? And so there's a brand new service called Patreon. And if you go to patreon.com/spacevidcast, and there will be links for that in the YouTube video. There is also a link for that if you go to youtube.com/spacevidcast, a big Patreon link. We're going to be doing that instead of Spacevidcast Epic. So as of now, Epic is dead. What Patreon will let you do is it will let you support the show in any denomination that you want. So there's no more you have to do $10 per month. You could, whatever you can do, and it's on a per episode basis. So if we don't release content, you don't pay. That seems very fair to me. And you get different things, different perks for different levels of. Basically, think of it like Kickstarter, but for podcasts.
Yep.
Now, every time we release an episode, there's X amount. So you say, look, I'm going to give you $1 every time you release an episode. But if you don't want to spend more than $10 per month, you can say, okay, I'm going to give them $1 per episode, but no more than 10 per month. So you can put caps and limits on that. And all of that money will go into helping us produce a better show for you guys. And this is, I think, where we want to be with Spacevidcast. I'm really excited. We just today got the Patreon page to go live. We're going to create some additional videos that kind of explain what's going on there. I think it's really exciting. I'm gonna have some fun with it, at least. We're gonna do some exclusive Google Hangouts for the Patreon. We'll call them Spacevidcast patrons. So for Spacevidcast patrons, we're gonna do some exclusive Google Hangouts. And if you contribute more than, I think it's $5 per episode, you're also considered a producer on the show, and we get you get names in the credits, and we'll also do roll calls for you. Yes, we'll bring back roll calls. And for those of you who haven't seen that, it's something.
And that was his idea.
Yeah,
I had nothing to do with
that.
That
was, in fact, my idea.
I saw that and said, you're crazy, but hey, good job.
So that will be cool. That will be awesome. Look for more information on that soon. Look for the links in the show notes. But patreon.com/spacevidcast for more information on that. All right, let's. Our main topic is basically it's twofold. It's looking backwards to 2013, some of the amazing things that maybe we forgot. For example, the Antares that was the first launch of Orbital Sciences Antares. And that was kind of a big deal. It proved out that SpaceX isn't the only company that can do commercial space.
Which is huge. That's incredible. I shouldn't say incredible, but it's really, really good news. It means that, first of all, it means that SpaceX is not a fluke. That it wasn't just something that happened to happen magically all by itself, that other people can do this too. And it creates this, what we like to call cooperation.
Coopetition.
Yeah, it's when you and your friend are going for the exact same gold medal and you're cheering each other on, but you both still want that medal anyway.
Yep. Yeah.
Right?
At least one of us won, but I really want it.
But I really want to win. But that's good because it spurs you on. It spurs both of you on. And it also lets you both shine in the areas that you're both better at, if that makes any sense. But both companies are doing really great. And it was awesome. I think it was awesome to see them do such a really great job.
Another thing that was first rocket-powered test is Spaceship Two. So now they've got 3 under their belt as of this year, as of 2014. But 2013, until 2013, we'd only ever seen drop tests or basically rollout tests. So first powered flight of Spaceship Two, getting us closer and closer to citizens being able to go into space and economic ish. Well, it's $250,000. I mean,
it's
but
all
it's still a
relative.
lot. It's a lot less money. Yeah, it's relative. It's relative. So it's $250,000 for you or I to fly into space when they start flying. But if you wanted to fly right now today, it's like, what are we up to? Are we up to 60 million per seat? Someone in the chat room help me out here. What is the cost of a Russian astronaut chair? I think it's up to 60 million. It used to be 20. So it's relative, right? I mean, 60 million. Oh, you can do a lot more on the $60 million flight, but still, I mean, space is space, and that's kind of awesome.
There you go.
Maven launched to Mars.
Yes.
And it's on its way to Mars. How awesome is that? That was a 2013, and of course, the first commercial flight of the Falcon 9 rocket and its first geotransfer orbit mission all happened in 2013. So huge year for commercial space. Huge year for advancement of getting everyone on the planet off the planet and to someplace like Mars. So now we reach 2014.
Yes.
What do you think is going to happen in 2014? I'll start with you.
Of course, because you always do.
I do, because otherwise you'll steal my answers.
I usually do, as a matter of fact. So it's a good thing we didn't talk about this beforehand. Otherwise, I would have said everything you told me. So SpaceX is looking towards, working towards, so let me be very clear, working towards having one launch per month this year. Whether or not that happens, I don't know. But that's really exciting because previous to 2014, I suppose, the number of launches that SpaceX has ever had continually in a year was something like 3. So even if there's only 5 coming out of SpaceX, that's incredible. Really, for not just them as a company, but for commercial space sort of in general.
I think ULA, someone again in the chat room, I'm just making this up off the top of my head. I think ULA had something like 10 launches last year in 2013.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It was
to
crazy.
give you an idea of comparison there, and that's a launch just about 1 launch per month.
Right, which is, that turnaround time is crazy go nuts. When you're used to looking at things like the space shuttle and the turnaround time on that and how many launches per year, space shuttle was able to maintain, ULA doing 10 in a year is absolutely phenomenal. And then if SpaceX, again, commercial, can manage to do 5 in a year, that would be freaking fantastic. And then I think Virgin Galactic is just going to continue to... I think everything is just basically going to be a snowball effect, right? I think the starting off is always the hardest part. You almost never hit the ground running, as they say. So I think it's just going to continue along those lines. I think we're going to see some really amazing things out of XCOR because, again, like I said, they've been so quiet for so long, and then when they do finally say something, they're like, oh, and by the way... boom! This is what we've been doing.
Boom!
So I think that's gonna. I think that trend, particularly for XCOR, but in general, is just going to continue. I think we're going to see a lot of not necessarily surprising. I don't think we're going to see anybody new on the horizon. I don't think Morpheus is going to come by and just suddenly say, "Oh, by the way, guys, we secretly got ourselves up to the moon." I don't think anything like that is going to happen per se. But I think 2014 is going to continue along this trend of just more of the same, but because it's more, it's going to be that much more fascinating,
Sure,
much more interesting. Does that make any sense?
I think 2014 is going to be, and we always say we're only 2 years away.
Wait, really quickly. I apologize. Zigger is correcting me in the chat room. You never want boom to be associated.
That's cool. Well, no. I mean,
I apologize.
As long as it's a controlled boom.
Yeah, a boom.
As long as yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's the type of boom.
Sorry, I take those words back, but they kind of did. Anyhow, go on.
I think 2014 is going to be the year of citizens in space.
Okay.
We've heard for so long Virgin Galactic is just around the corner. They're almost there. They're almost there. But the fact that they're flying their vehicle at almost 100,000 feet already, obviously there's more testing that needs to happen. It's going to take a lot longer than it's not happening next month. But I think near the end of 2014, Virgin Galactic's going to be really doing stuff, and I think XCOR might be close there too. I'm not sure. I haven't been able to peek behind that particular curtain to see how far along they are with the Link Mark 1. But those are the two things that I am hyper excited about. I think that's going to start a lot of really great conversations about space. And as long as we're talking about space and have it kind of on the forefront of our mind collectively as a species, I think we're going to start to be able to do other bigger, badder, cooler things, because people are going to want to know, well, why aren't we on Mars? Why aren't we back on the moon? I don't understand how we can go to the moon 40, 50 years ago, but we can't do it now.
Right, with the computations that are equal or lesser than my phone.
Exactly. It doesn't make any sense. So I think people are going to start questioning that and saying, where's my moon? And a lot of, I think it's going to start other good conversations as well, which is you're going to hear a lot of the, I don't understand why we're putting people into space when there's hunger down here, and when there's disease down here, and when we have so many problems down here. And that's a good conversation starter, is to explain, you don't do just one thing. You help humanity as a whole. So I think that's a lot of what we're going to see in 2014. It's without sounding too cheesy, it is a really exciting time to be alive. So I am employed by SpaceX, but this show is not in any way, shape, or form related to SpaceX. They don't endorse it. They don't anything. And so we choose not to comment on anything. I'll tell you, I don't actually know much about anything just because of my role. So I don't have access to that information. But I think what SpaceX does in 2014 will likely be awesome. I think it's going to be some of that stuff where you look at it and you go, that's really, really cool. And so I don't actually have any insights. So don't ask. I don't know when MCT is going to fly. I don't know when they're going to do it. I have no idea. But that's some exciting stuff too. And I hope we see a lot more of that in 2014 from SpaceX.
And of course, the chat room again, Zigger, thank you. So eloquently put it, consistently visible progress by several companies, commercial companies and government, and it's a very exciting time. It is. It really, really is.
There's the Space Launch System, which we jokingly call the Senate Launch System, because it's a rocket designed by senators. Love it or hate it, that's pretty much how it comes down. It's a rocket designed by senators. Without much of a mission, but if we get this rocket and we can figure out how to fund it, two big ifs. The most powerful rocket humans have ever built. That is exciting. That is cool.
Yeah.
If we can figure out how to get around all the politics and navigate through all that and actually do something awesome with this rocket, imagine for a moment what we would be able to do with the most powerful vehicle humans have ever built, ever. That is exciting too.
Quite.
Now, that won't be a 2014 thing.
No.
Their first mission is looking at 2017, but maybe we'll see some of that start to become either more real or less real. Right? I think this is going to be 2014, 2015, somewhere in there. I think that's going to be some of the defining moments for SLS and possibly Orion as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
put that on the record.
So Vac says, beer bet that it never flies. I am not taking that bet.
Well, he can't drink anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's take a really quick break, and when we come back, I would say comments from last week's show, but comments that we randomly pulled, and only a couple of them. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
1, 0. Liftoff.
The fleet of space shuttles were doing amazing things in space.
We've got all your space geekery right here.
And welcome back. So it's, as we mentioned a couple of times, it's been a little while since we had our last show. I just so happen to get a few emails here and there asking some questions, and these are some of the recent ones that we had. This one is fairly long, so bear with me. This one comes from Mark, and he says, I think that pretty much everyone agrees that both Inspiration Mars as well as Mars 1 missions will never get off the ground. Not only are we technically not advanced enough, I seriously doubt we'll ever raise the kind of money needed for these missions. But I think most people would love to see these missions take place in various problems could be overcome. My question is, if we did it on the moon instead, would that work? Inspiration Moon or Moon 1 or something like that. Would we actually be able to pull it off if we did things on the moon? So we've talked before about should we be skipping the moon, right? And I think the general consensus between you and I is no, because you can look up at the moon and go, there are people there. And you can't really look at Mars as like the moon is like there, right?
They're kind of like almost every night.
It's like right there in front of you.
There.
The moon is right there. Mars, maybe not. It's just a little bit hard. It's really cool and inspiring, but we should be doing both. But that's not the question here. The question is, can we do the moon if instead of Inspiration Mars or Mars 1, if we did Inspiration Moon and Moon 1? Is that more realistic than Mars? Now, I'm going to answer with, I don't think so. I think the amount of money and technology required to get to the moon is not that much more than the amount of money and technology needed to get to Mars, especially if it's a one-way trip. Now, it is more. Let's not say that they're the same. There is more, but I'm going to say it's like 20% more. And I don't think it's that 20% that's holding us back. I think it's a lot more. I think it's way, way, way harder to do space than people give it credit for. We're so used to cell phones that get updated every year,
Right.
and just technology that's space does not work on that time frame.
Right.
And I just don't think people are used to that.
Interesting. I personally am slightly conflicted. I take the one approach of Peter Diamandis's, Peter's rules of when a choice, choose both. Mm-hmm. So why we're not doing an Inspiration Moon and an Inspiration Mars is a little conflicting in my own head. But then the other thought process I'm having is the old saying of shoot for the moon, and even if you don't get there, at least you land among the stars kind of idea. So if we, for whatever reason, can't figure out a way to get to Mars and do an Inspiration Mars or a Mars 1, why not just sort of quote unquote dumb it down a wee bit, the 20% as you're saying, and do the same thing but with the moon sort of instead, or as well as you could do, maybe even break it out, and here's just me thinking on the fly, do an Inspiration Moon and an Inspiration Mars, but the Inspiration Moon is for, very specifically for college students, or, somehow it's there's a differentiation that they're the same sort of thing, but still inspirational in their own ways, or for different groups of people, or, I'm not sure, like I said, thinking on the fly, but I see what I'm saying? Like, I sort of feel that they are both inspirational, and sure, why aren't we doing both? Both is sort of the reoccurring theme
right now we can't do either. I think
right,
is the
no,
point,
I know.
right? So if we can't even go to Mars, how can you manage to go to Mars and the moon?
Sure. I don't know. I don't know. You know me. I have my wide-eyed enthusiasm of...
Go us. We can do anything we want.
Right. In the future, everything's going to be Star Trek, and we're going to love each other, and it's all going to be great. For sure. So, therefore, in the next couple of years, it's all going to be cool, and we're all going to be able to do this. No problem. We're just going to eliminate money and food issues and all... we're just going to 3D print everything.
We're just going to... That's the answer, is 3D print it all.
Hey, they are already 3D printing food. So, therefore...
Really? And ew.
Yeah, no, at, what was the CES? There was a 3D printed, chocolate and, candy thing. Somebody's going to back me up on this.
No, I believe you.
I know that
I can actually kind of see that, and a little bit ew. I bet it tasted a little plasticky.
Probably 3D printed pizzas and stuff like that. So I think we're a lot closer than most people give us credit for. Because everyone sort of looks around and says, it's 2014. Where's my flying car? Well, you don't need a flying car right now, okay? We're trying to do bigger things.
Heldex brought up an interesting point, is how about just building something there to abort to, kind of as a safe haven? I would say, rather than maybe kind of a launching point as well, right? So
Sure.
Getting out of Earth's gravity is very, very difficult. Once you're out of Earth's gravity well, you can go anywhere you want. So, International Space Station's in the wrong inclination, but what if we built something like von Braun's space station idea?
Sure.
And just have it sitting there orbiting, so you've got a little bit of rotating, so you got a little bit of gravity. It's orbiting Earth, or it doesn't actually have to orbit Earth. I don't know. So I don't know where it would be, but it'd be far enough away where you're outside of the gravity well. You can use it as a fueling depot. You can use it as a place to build your spacefaring vehicles. You can use it as a safe haven and as a launching point. I think that would be a really good first step, is to create a spaceport right outside of Earth, and then team up with XCOR and Virgin Galactic and be like, look, your vehicles can't quite make it there. What do you need to do? What can we do to figure out how to make it so that your vehicles can go from Earth to the spaceport and back and be fully reusable? Once we've got that leg figured out, now the next legs become easier.
Right.
Not easy.
Not easy.
Not easy. Just easier. Easier. Yeah. So I think that would be a really cool thing to do as well. George asks, I think NASA should let go of the International Space Station and focus on working towards getting men on Mars. Also a question, can the Space Launch System get to Mars? So going backwards, can the Space Launch System get to Mars? If it were built to spec, there would be nothing preventing the Space Launch System, specifically the Orion capsule on top, from making it all the way to Mars and back, right? So yes, it can do that. It does have enough power. Should we let go of the International Space Station, which has been extended, by the way?
Right.
Should we let go of the International Space Station and focus on getting humans on Mars? He said men on Mars, but we'll say humans on Mars. It doesn't have to be men.
Women and dogs only.
So, that's actually a really good question. I'm sure there's value coming out of the International Space Station. I don't want to say there's none.
Right.
But is the value worth the cost of the space station? Are we learning how to put humans on Mars? So is it more than just a simple jobs program at this point?
Right.
I'm asking. I'm asking the community. I'm actually not sure where I sit. I guess I haven't really thought of the International Space Station that much and whether we should keep it or not. I just kind of...
Well, okay, but I think there's two different ways to look at that as well. There's the current space station and the what am I trying to say? The state that it's in,
yes.
Right? So because things are going to decay, things are going to need upgrading, all of those sorts of things. Or there's also a space station.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying? So I think having a space station, continually having people living in space and doing experiments and all of the learning that we're gathering from that, abso-frickin-lutely. The current state of our International Space Station and what it's doing and what all of that, that's where I'm a little bit unsure personally.
But would we, even if we replaced it with something else, why would it be any different than what we've got right now?
I just I feel as though, and I very well could be very wrong on this, I want to make that clear. I feel as though any stories that are coming out of the International Space Station, and that's also sort of a media thing, is all this doom and gloom, but it's sort of like, well, we had to do an emergency walk to fix this. Oh, our toilet's down again. Well, this is the 18th toilet that we brought up to the International Space Station. And next, we couldn't bring as much fresh fruit for, this, that, or the other because we had to bring another part up. And that feels very frustrating to me as a space enthusiast. So in a magical world, again, which is, the sky is purple in my world, in case anyone's wondering, if we could have a perfectly well-oiled machine, International Space Station up in space with experiments, yes, absolutely. I'm 110% in favor of that. What we have going right now, I don't know. I won't say no. I just say I don't know.
I guess I don't have enough insight as to what we're doing on station, right? So it's easy to say, well, we're not doing anything valuable, so deorbit it. Well, but are we? I just don't know.
Right.
Vax Headroom in the chat room says the International Space Station is being used for a lot of research these days, absolutely necessary for a trip to Mars. Heldesk brings up another very good point, which is it's a laboratory. It depends on how you use it.
For sure.
So it doesn't matter if you build a new one and stick it up there. If you don't use it, then what's the point?
Absolutely. I just don't want it broken down every other day. That's my main concern with that.
It
I'll
is
be
a
honest.
space thing, right? So Spacevidcaster 72 basically said, I just lost it. I don't think it makes sense to build the International Space Station for $100 billion, then deorbit it within a few years. Although I would argue just because you spent money on something doesn't mean you should continue to spend money on something. Learn where you need to cut your losses and move forward. I'm not saying that's what we should do with the International Space Station, but I don't think that's a valid reason to keep it, is saying, well, it was expensive, so let's throw more money at it.
Right. That just doesn't make any sense. Sorry.
Yeah, so I guess that, that would actually be a good topic in and of itself, is what is some of the next gen study stuff that we're doing? What are some of the experiments of value that are happening on the space station that will help humans get to Mars, that will help humans go back to the moon, that will help humans explore beyond where we've gone before?
Right.
I'm sure there are a ton of them. I just don't know what they are. And what a great way to also say, yeah, the International Space Station is useful. Look at these cool things that we're learning up there.
For sure.
Because, you don't know what you don't know. So, there you go. All right. Oh, yeah, actually, Live, I'm not sure which, says bringing up Vasimir, which is a next-generation engine technology to run tests on space station. Although that's a show in and of itself. I think it's a main topic in and of itself as to whether that will actually work.
One more, if I may. SJM100 says the repairs are very relevant. You need to know how to fix things. If you're going to go all the way to Mars, you better know what to do. Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. It's not that those aren't learning moments as well. So that's perfectly valid. At the same time, I don't want an International Space Station that's doing valuable experiments being held together with Velcro and duct tape.
I don't think it's being held together with Velcro.
No. But figuratively, I would, again, in my world, it would be a perfectly well-oiled machine, and we were able to focus on the experiments and those things that we want to focus on, as opposed to, we might have had another fire, you guys. We don't know where it came from.
A fire.
Let's
go
fix that.
Not a fire.
No, we've had smoke alarms. We've had, all of those different things.
But these are issues you're going to hit on the way to Mars, too. So you need to learn how to deal with them, because you're not going to have a flawless mission to Mars. Not at first.
No, for sure. I guess, but that's sort of where I'm sitting, I suppose.
And actually, New Space Riddy, Bigelow Aerospace's module, essentially it's an inflatable space station. I would love to see that too.
Yeah.
I'd love to see the big one that they're working on.
Yeah.
I think that would be really awesome to have. All right, that's our show for this week. I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching. Remember, Spacevidcast is now part of Patreon. Spacevidcast Epic is gone, which means After Dark or anything that we're not recording part of the show, we're just going to give away to absolutely everyone. We're not going to force you to buy something to consume any of the Spacevidcast content. We do ask that you help us out. There's more gear that we want to get. There's more stuff that we want to do. We want to make the show better. We'd love to do this full time. Patreon.com/Spacevidcast. Whatever you're comfortable with, we appreciate any of your help. I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.